Welcome back to Software Without Borders, where we explore the ever-evolving world of software and its impact on businesses and industries worldwide. I'm your co-host, Andy Hilliard, CEO of Accelerants, and with me today is my co-host, Ryan Schauer, Partner Success Manager at Accelerants.
Hey, Andy. Hey, Jesse. Everyone, we're thrilled to have Jesse Demmel on the podcast today. Jesse is a seasoned software executive with an extensive background in the SaaS area, artificial intelligence, digital fitness, and enterprise software. Jesse's got a proven track record of building and leading high-performing product teams. Jesse's also passionate about achieving product market fit, driving scalable revenue streams, and fostering innovation.
Hey, Jesse, we're super excited to hear about your insights on navigating the challenges of modern product development. And so welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Andy, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here today. And looking forward to it.
Jesse, you have an impressive background in various sectors, including, like Ryan said, SaaS, AI, consumer products like digital fitness and enterprise software in the energy space. Can you share a little bit about your journey into engineering leadership and sort of what led you to specialize in these areas? And also maybe just to throw in at the end here, sort of tell us about your current role at Uplight, like we're in the 5th grade.
Yeah, no problem. So I think like many in my position, I started off as a software engineer for many years. And over time, I was drawn to scaling people problems as much as I was as technical problems. And, fortunate that I worked with some phenomenal leaders who took a chance on me, and we were in some really interesting businesses. And so gave me the opportunity to solve really interesting problems. And so the last 15 years, I've been in executive roles and at companies and various types, as you just said. But I think the common thread is like all these companies are growing and of a certain size and scale and solving similar problems, like, a lot of challenges that are associated with scaling and that technical scaling and growth. Typically M&A, managing growing tech debt along some kind of digital cloud transformation always seems to be involved. And then everybody always wants to build out a common data platform to support that overall thesis. And so while I've had a lot of varied experience across these, different business models and domains, those factors have kind of always remained the same. And at Uplight today, very exciting time to be working in the energy industry. There's a lot of, you don't often think of it as dynamic and changing, but it is changing about as fast as it can because of all the strain being put on the grid. So we have data centers popping up literally as fast as anybody can build them and connecting them to the grid as fast as possible, which is putting a ton of strain on generation. And we have things like EVs, even if they slow down in sales, they're still growing and there's still a lot of load. Electrification of all the things in your home. You're now getting electric heat pumps instead of your natural gas. Can't have natural gas in new buildings in New York and San Francisco and things like that. So the grid is really facing a lot of strain. And at Uplight, we help alleviate that strain by having a grid flexibility management system. So virtual power plants and helping out with using all those devices in your home to participate and be an active grid participant in helping to solve that. So similar type problems when we talk about what we're solving for from product development. This was through 8 acquisitions that we are today. So we merged with AutoGrid was the most recent last year. And that brings all sorts of scaling and interesting challenges on making that happen. And we have a global development workforce to help solve all of this. And we just launched our common data platform last year, which is something I've done in previous jobs as well.
So tell me a little bit about your sort of ideal client profile. Who are your clients? What do they look like? What sort of solution are they looking for? How do you go in and deliver a solution to them?
Yeah, really good question. So most of our customers, we work kind of around a broad range of energy providers. Sometimes they're energy retailers, but oftentimes it's in North America and it's a large utility company. So, depending on where you're at, maybe it's Duke Energy down in Florida, for example, or here in Colorado, it's Excel Energy. They're investor-backed investor-owned utilities, IOUs, and they have multiple markets they operate within. And they are rolling out either energy efficiency programs, so helping you make better choices around how you utilize energy in your home, or they have these needs around grid flexibility, and they're just starting to launch them out. It usually starts with more simple programs like demand response, where the grid has to work all the time, 100%, never go down. So to scale that, the biggest peak is typically in the summer months when everybody's cranking their AC and it's 100 plus degrees outside. And then everybody comes home and plugs their cars in as well and does all that. So if we can connect to those devices and make some adjustments on behalf of the utility without anybody having any discomfort. So you're not going to feel warm in your home. Your car is still going to get charged, all of that, but we make those adjustments. Then we do that on behalf of the utility. So I would say the ideal customer is a customer who is at the forefront of some of these changes and has kind of a more open and reasonable regulatory body who is also helping to push some of these things to happen, so that we have the opportunity to help innovate with the utility and make some of these changes happen and bring them to life.
Great. That shines a lot of light. I guess Uplight, that's where I got that word from. On sort of what you do.
Intentional.
Not even, it just came out. So, you had mentioned earlier that, like most of our guests, you started out as a software developer and you got some breaks and all of a sudden became an executive. So why don't we just break that down a little bit about, you've held leadership positions at Uplight and Sovereign Holdings and Under Armour. So, can you tell us a little bit about how these different positions, formed your perspective on product development and what is sort of added to your holistic understanding? It's, a lot of people, I guess they would say that they'd like to have one job for their entire life, but honestly, to have different jobs in different industries in different roles, really rounds out a person to be a more effective senior executive. Can you give us a little insight into how that did that for you?
Yeah, hopefully it's rounding me out. We'll see, I guess. Every job I've ever taken is the last job I'm ever going to have. I've never gone in with the purpose of looking for on any sort of timeline. I always want to align with an executive team, and we're in a long-term situation and we really want to build something very meaningful. It just hasn't worked out yet, but hopefully it does here.
You know what? You can control certain things and you can't control other things, but all the while you're absorbing. So you're absorbing different experiences, right? And so whatever happens here, if it's the last job you have, great. If it's not the last job you have, you just have a tremendous resume.
Yeah, 100%. So I think, digital fitness to digital publishing to energy and optimizing the grid, those are very different things, right? And I would say the one thing is in terms of how it's formed me and my perspective is it's really kept me humble. With that kind of change, I'm never the expert in the room. I'm always kind of learning and getting up to speed on the domain. And I'm working alongside folks who've been doing this for decades. So remaining and learning curious is paramount to me in my role. But there are common threads, so it's interesting across digital fitness to digital publishing and now energy. It's what's the common thread there? All of these things are really interested in marketing funnels and helping humans make behavior changes, right? So fitness, you're trying to get that engagement and usage. Digital publishing is, a lot of, kind of marketing funnels to get those eyeballs and keep them engaged. And then here it's the same thing. Utilities need to find customers who have these devices and enroll them in those programs to help get a grid outcome, and help change some things. So I can take all that and having that varied experience offers a real fresh perspective and potentially unique solutions to this new domain that I'm applying these technical solutions to, these product solutions to. And so as a leader, it's really shaped me in the fact that I place a lot of value on non-traditional paths to software engineering, right? Because I've had a non-traditional path to the domain, maybe a more traditional path to software engineering. I want to find those unique perspectives because I think they'll really help us round out the team. So every time I go to a company, I always want to put in place those type of programs where, we're going to hire engineers out of accounting or tech support or whatever, because they're just going to bring a whole lot. And they're going to be super passionate about learning and being curious, because in order to do that, you have to be pretty humble on learning and having a second reboot on your career, so to speak.
Man, I really love hearing that. I don't think in all the podcasts I've been on, I've heard that perspective, and I completely buy into it. So, you sold me.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think so, like along those lines, I think most of these companies here today are being about mission driven, and really strong cultures are kind of table stakes. But I think that the critical thing and the critical commonality across these different companies that I worked on is placing a ton of value on learning, growth, and curiosity. And that has to be embedded in the company DNA.
So true. I mean, that is such a driver of low turnover. Someone who just feels like they're excited and motivated to learn something else on a day-to-day basis. That's something you can't put a dollar on, but it is definitely something that makes people think it's like, I really like this place. I'm constantly being challenged and I'm learning new things.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Jesse, because with your experience at Uplight, and you mentioned before the acquisitions that you guys have made, a lot of our customers that come to us are bringing in new team members, right? And from across the globe, or different countries, different continents. What is your thought process on weaving in those different teams, or are you guys keeping them separate, or are they commingled now in the development space, or are they owning their own products? How do you make sure they're all fitting into the Uplight culture, as you mentioned?
Really great question. So I think when it comes to bringing on consultants, contractors, people that aren't your employees, when you're employees, you've got a whole vetting process, right, to make sure we're culturally aligned and everything else. So for me, it's about meeting those companies and those partners early on, being proactive about it, anticipating where your needs are going to be, and making sure that we have very high values alignment, that the way that they run their business is going to, and their and their employees and hiring of the engineers is going to feel very similar to how we do things. And if we can get that alignment, then we still go through an engineering vetting process. And I would say that how we integrate with the teams is going to depend on the use case. Oftentimes it's kind of a team extension model. You need to kind of sprinkle some throughout different teams to kind of go faster, and you have a certain spike you need to get through. Other times, maybe there's a longer term product ownership piece that we want to take out to somebody else for various reasons. And so they'll kind of be owning that on an ongoing basis. And we'd have different models in terms of how we'd engage and want to set that up. It's going to be a little less important if it's a team in its entirety working together on its own in their own environment to have that really high cultural alignment. You still want some basics there because we're going to have to work together, but it's okay if they kind of have a little bit of their own thing going on versus that team extension model where we really need to get it dialed. And that might take a few iterations to get it really perfect on the team extension model, but that's something that how I think about it, at least.
No, definitely. And the other piece I really want to touch on, it's a huge topic that everyone's thinking about, everyone's working on, is artificial intelligence, right? I mean, developers are here. They're no longer going to be needed in the future, right? And what's the future? Is it tomorrow? Is it next week? It's a year from now. What are you guys looking at now that's helping your engineering team be more efficient in leveraging AI? And then also, what are your long-term thoughts on, what the status of an engineer looks like, with AI just growing exponentially?
100%. I think we've been trying to displace and say we're not going to need software engineers since the 1960s and the advent of COBOL. And it's just been evolving. I literally just read an article about this yesterday and how it's been evolving since then. I mean, I can remember on the advent of UML in like 2000. And we're going to have business process definition, BPEL, and it's going to displace, and we're not going to need engineers anymore. And meanwhile, programming languages have gotten closer and closer to natural language the entire time, and it has gotten much faster and more efficient to write things. I certainly think that AI is a sea change moment, and it's going to be really, really big. It already is, and it's going to continue to get larger and more impactful across everything we do. But to be honest, I just think that's going to change what's required out of engineers. I mean, the actual coding, AI is going to be great at coding and encoding in certain aspects. And we're already using that with things like a Copilot, things like that within coding. And we're seeing some great efficiency gains on the engineering side. But coding is only part of the job. And there's a whole bunch of other things on like that humans are going to be best to do because it's connecting with the customers and coming up with these unique ideas and everything else around all the minutia of this. And so I think that it's going to make some of the coding a lot faster and easier, just like we've had that kind of going the whole time. Maybe this is a little bit of a step function in that evolution, but that's kind of how I'm feeling about it. So it's really important we stay close and at the forefront of this, but also not get worked up like we're going to end up firing or not hiring half of our team because of it. I do think we'll be more productive, and it should change the innovation rate that we go after. But I don't see a much smaller workforce because I don't know what are either one of you seeing in how you're talking to companies.
Well, I deal a lot with software development companies, and with their engineering, they're similar outtakes that you're talking about. They're using it to gain efficiencies, to deliver to the end customer faster. Right, with less bugs, with zero bugs, and just be more efficient across the board. Now, others, clients may come to us also looking for an AI solution, but also, if you start to peek under the hood, they're not even close to being ready for some AI solution. So, it just depends on each customer. But yeah, a lot of our partners are not worried as of yet, but they are all in the AI space. People, the ones that are avoiding it and not using it are definitely the ones going to be left behind. So a lot of us are using it for gaining efficiencies from a testing perspective, right? Automation, helping move that along and deliver faster. That's the main goal there.
I agree with you, Ryan. All of our partners and all of our clients are currently using AI in various manners and methods to gain efficiency. However, I think the industry right now and our partners are telling us this, that they're trying to figure out how to productize AI and deliver it in a bundled solution, a scope defined solution to clients. But the environment is changing so quickly, and their ability to sort of productize this and provide it as a single source solution is kind of challenging, and there's going to be some delays. What we're actually looking for right now from our partners is trying to make some more tangible commitment in productivity management and measurement in terms of reduced development time, smaller teams, providing and driving down the overall cost of development just through the inevitable efficiencies that AI provides them. If I'd like to sort of switch to some questions around innovation and leadership, and that is, and I'm gonna bridge these questions with another question. I really want to talk to you about total cost of delivery. But you emphasize fostering collaboration and leading distributed teams. What are some sort of effective strategies for building high-performing remote teams, and sort of maintaining a strong sense of collaboration and shared purpose?
Yeah. So, on remote teams, I think that asynchronous communication and optimizing that is really important. So I think, sorry, hold on, just catching my thought for a second. Yeah, I think so. Sorry. Regardless of remote or local, spending way more time than we thought on sharing context is really important, right? So I really believe in getting small, aligned, independent teams, remote, empowered teams. And in order to do that, sharing that context on a continuous basis to make sure we're all operating from the same page, everybody understands where they're going is important. If you're remote, asynchronous communication is going to be critical to making that happen, particularly when time zones aren't kind. Fortunately, I think, we got lots of tools to help us do that, right? So like, hey, I've got an idea I want to share with the team, record a short video on a Loom or something, and, collaborative whiteboards like Miro or a Lucid really help us out. When's the last time you used a document that didn't have real-time collaboration, right? Like we can remember when Microsoft Word was on their computer, but like everything is kind of remote, asynchronous friendly on helping us do that. And I think leveraging those, but building that strong sense of cohesion and shared purpose, right? Like that you talked about, that part is where the specialness is, I think, in making this happen. And for that, I think about really being diligent about making the ceremonies great, right? So as you go through and you're delivering software at any given moment, just making it count so that people understand and are constantly being reconnected back to our customers and the problems that we're solving for them, whether that be, demos and showing how we're innovating for them and getting people excited and reconnecting them back to the mission of the company and what we're doing, and just taking those opportunities in those ongoing ceremonies on a regular basis to do that and making it fun, right? Like I think being remote, it can end up feeling just kind of robotic at time, and you go into your meeting, you get out of your meeting and you do the thing. And it's like, how do we add and keep it fun as well? I think is really critical to discuss, and that can look a lot different at different places. But, I think regardless of remote or local, humans are still social creatures, and some in-person interaction at key moments is going to be critical. So, wherever I'm at, no matter how remote the team is, like we have people in India, and there's several of us that are going to be going there in a few weeks, and the India team comes over here at key moments throughout the year. And I think that's really, really critical to lock in that shared context I talk about and get that connection back to customers and the other stakeholders in the business and all those kind of intangible things. So how do you find those key moments to come together, I think are important.
Yeah, that's a great segue into, so I'll say that Jesse, you've contributed to this ebook that we're about to produce, which is called The Total Cost of Delivery. And in the section that you contributed to, you talked about the importance of diversifying offshore partnerships with different company needs, and some of the complexities that come with it, like time zone, misalignment, and also the availability of specialized skills that you can find, right? Different places like India, like you're outsourcing currently. Can you sort of elaborate how you and Uplight are balancing the benefits of diversified development with also the complexities that sort of come with it? Like, how do you strike that balance?
There's so much to be gained on the flexibility that you can get with having partners like that in different areas, and specialized in like specialization in skill sets. Everybody's always going to think that the best people ever are the ones that are sitting next to me, local, right? So I need the data scientist that's amazing, and I'm going to find that local person that's close and we can really understand them, or local meaning in the time zone or in the United States or whatever. But I think that there's a real big opportunity to finding partners who have built an entire bench of people that specialize in certain areas, and we've had success of doing that. So we find that what are your needs going to be in terms of scaling up and having a little bit more flexibility in the different areas of the business, and then targeting that again, like I talked about a little bit earlier, but being proactive in that approach has had a lot of success for me in terms of if you're in the moment and you're in the moment of crisis and you need to pull a ripcord, you may not find the partner that's going to meet your needs the best. But if you can think about it a little bit more proactively and build up those relationships, I've found a lot more success in what are you solving for? Oftentimes, there's definitely going to be a cost component for sure. But I think that there's also other aspects in terms of scaling quickly, right? But then knowing where and how to find those specialized skill sets that you need. So I would rather work with like a vendor, right, and a partner, so we can spend that time to getting totally aligned over multiple years. But it's frequently hard to do that, to keep the flexibility depending on how diverse the product portfolio you have or how wide the things are that you're trying to do and solve for from a technical perspective. It may be hard to get that in one place.
Well, you've talked about a lot of factors that drive an effective relationship, and a lot of people that are thinking about outsourcing tend to say, well, can I get X done for less money, better, faster, cheaper? And there's a lot of components, a lot of personal components, a lot of relationship components. And people can either invest in the development of the relationship and the people and gain a lot of benefits from that, or they can just treat it as a transactional relationship and not get the outcomes that they were thinking because they were too simplistically single-minded in what they wanted to get out of it without actually investing in the people part and the culture part and the whole myriad of benefits that you can get out of that, like access to a talent pool that is hyper specialized around something that you specifically need, the ability to ramp up quickly, but then the ability to, like you had mentioned, sort of empowering people, measuring people, making them accountable, which of course I guess increases their not curiosity, their creativity and their desire to, like, hey, I'm a part of something, I'm learning, this is great for me. And so it sounds like you've I guess matured over time, you're thinking around what makes an effective partnership, right?
Music to my ears is when I'm talking to a contracting vendor and they say that, listen, everybody wants to come work on your account. Right? And you can't do that if you treat it transactional. They need to be tuned into the mission and why it matters and our culture and what we're doing. And the team needs to treat them like peers that we want to integrate and work with on a daily basis. Like, if you treat it like transactional, you're going to be the last account in their entire portfolio that anybody wants to work on because it's just miserable to go there. And you're not going to get the best people, right? So I want the best people. And in the end, I want them completely aligned with delivering customer value and everything else. And so they have to have the full picture, and it's worth the investment to do that. You're going to get your time spent, your money spent out of that in spades, in my opinion.
Yeah, everything you do in work is competitive. It's like you're either attracting the best, retaining the best, and producing the best as a team, as a whole, and everyone feels like they're a part of the success, or you're losing people, you're not attracting the right people, and you're not coordinated on the same page together, and things just seem to be very strained and strenuous as opposed to being more fluid and cohesive. So I love that. I mean, obviously you've learned that over time, right?
Yeah, I've talked to people who treat selecting contractors like a procurement process, and that's it. It's like, it's procurement. I'm here to get the lowest cost option that's going to be efficient to give us the thing. And I'm like, these are humans. This is a whole team
people
situation.
That say outsourcing doesn't work because they treat humans like commodities.
Yeah, exactly.
We get so many of those from our customers that have, we've been working with our lowest cost bidder and it's not working out. We need somebody else. So, I mean, it's always that you get what you pay for. And they've also treated them like like that third party and not pulling them into their overall culture and treating them like an employee where you can, and just make sure that they're involved so that they stick around, right? Again, as you know, attrition is another killer of your velocity in your project. So if you keep rotating people in and out, you're not going to develop, quickly, and you're going to have a subpar product. So you've got to manage the people, manage the technology, and take it all into account to be successful.
It's going to take time. Like I think people are like, oh, I'm going to do this so that our team doesn't have to worry about scaling or pay attention to or anything else. And it's like, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. You're going to have some model where it's going to take some effort. It's going to take some time investment on behalf of you and the team to get it to a good spot.
Sometimes difficult to communicate that to stakeholders because they want to go fast. They just want to go fast right from day one, and it keeps saying go slow to go fast. Oh, I don't want to go slow. Like how long do I have to go slow for? It's like anything else. I mean, you're creating a high powered, highly effective team that's going to be producing value, positive value for a long period of time. If you just take the time to invest in culture creation, people, training and knowledge transfer, and get the best people to want to be on the team and work out the processes. It's people, processes, and outcome. So your outcome will be coming much faster once we get the basics in place. So I mean, it's a necessary requirement.
And like, I'm victim of it just like everybody else, where I've got a raging emergency and I need to get something spun up right now, yesterday. But if you can anticipate it and you can start before the actual need happens, and you can do a little test project or something to get all those things dialed and in place before the actual, need hits in 6 months or down the line or whatever, and you can swing that, then I've seen a lot of success on getting that dialed. And then when the time comes to scale, it's like it's all ready to rock.
Well, it's both anticipation and planning. It's also setting expectations with stakeholders. And it doesn't really, to go slow, to go fast, it doesn't take a lot of time. You'd be amazed at how much difference clients see between, like, I need people yesterday and my hair is on fire. I didn't plan for this. I didn't anticipate this. I just got to start working. And 2 or 3 weeks later, it's like, I got to point fingers at these people because they didn't read my mind and they didn't just absorb everything about our business model and what we're doing and how we're doing it. And they didn't do it correctly. So therefore outsourcing doesn't work. I'm like, are you insane? It's like, just literally take a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And that's not getting nothing done. That's getting a lot done. That's setting the stage for just, going forth and getting and doubling, tripling your productivity over the near term. If you can just, bake in a little bit of prep. I mean, as a cook, you don't just throw the ingredients together and throw it in the oven and expect, something great to come out. I mean, you have to take a little bit of time to make sure that the ingredients are, integrating and being where they need to be in order to, produce what you want. Bad analogy. I was just winging it there, but maybe it makes sense. So tell me a little bit more about your coaching and mentoring of product managers and developers to sort of enhance their skills and foster a more collaborative environment.
You need to be clear on what success looks like. So, and people need their goals and they need to know, what are the expectations here? And for that, every time I go to a new job in a new place, it seems like within the first 6 months, I'm spending a ton of time on the career architecture and defining it. Being very clear around what's the leveling look like, where things are going to go. And, if you just take what the people team kind of hands you, because that's based on our compensation and it comes out with a whole spit out, here's your T1 through T5, here's your P track. That isn't going to be super aligned with your values and the technical challenges you need to solve and how you need to show up for your customers. And so being really diligent about that and using it in that format, for me, gives it really dialed and easy for everybody to get coached in the same way and have a common experience versus okay, this person is coaching me in this way and it feels different than so everybody kind of wants the best manager that spends the right time and everything else. But if we have those standards kind of there, then it makes sense. So I kind of put in 2 different buckets, that coaching aspect versus mentoring. And when and mentoring is a very specific, personal, I have a development plan. I really want to get to this place. And maybe my manager isn't the right coach to help get me there. And that's trying to find others in the company, maybe in different cross, functional areas that can help be a good mentor for you to get you to that place. Look outside the building and finding mentors. How often can we find people and everybody's like, oh, I need to go pay $1 gazillion for this mentor outside? Not always. Oftentimes it's networking and it's just, this is going to be a really interesting person for you. And I think you could really learn a lot for these things that you're trying to do. And you build those connections and that can be really powerful for folks to kind of get them
to the next
level.
You learned?
That's
something
learned?
You learned? Yeah, because I don't hear that, at least that philosophy around that as often as well as you just described it.
I've seen, I guess it started where I was at a company and it was available. Oftentimes this mentoring thing was available from professionals for executives. We're going to get you an executive coach type of deal. And I'm such a democratizer. I always want, if it's good enough for an executive, everybody should have it. And why not? Because we should all I want to invest in everybody in the company the same way. And so how can we scale that opportunity? And then I've been in organizations where they've put a lot of thought on purposely scaling that. And now it's just it's kind of my mantra. And how can we help make that happen? The mentoring side of that takes a lot of time. And so, I think oftentimes it's a lot easier to spend that effort on, kind of your high potential people, like our high performers. And, you see like hey, let's really invest in you and help get this set up. Because it can be hard to do at scale for everybody in the organization, but everybody in the organization deserves good coaching and good expectations and understanding how they're going to grow their career, how they're going to get to that next step, and be very clear about how to get there.
What are you seeing? What are the characteristics you're seeing from those engineers or individuals that are at that high performing level, right? The ultra successful ones on your teams. What are some of the characteristics, that other engineers can listen to this and try to copy?
But the first thing that's most important to me is act like an owner. So like if the high potential people are always the ones that are like, I think someday they might be a CEO, or they could be a CEO, but like they just take ownership and they just go. So like, it's like, I can't remember, somebody in my career said, hey, do you have employees? Do you have partners, or do you have owners? Like who's on your team? And you want a bunch of owners on your team. People that would like act as if this was your decision to make, and what would you do? And then suddenly it's like, and why can't you do that? And then all of a sudden they're off to the races. So I think that some people, for whatever reason in their upbringing or, their experiences, they've built that into their DNA. The more people that have that, I think it is really helpful. And then from the second thing that I keep coming back to, and I think is just super important, is that customer obsession. So, some engineers are like, I work on this technology and that's what I care about. Tell me about your tech stack. Do you have the latest, I don't know, insert JavaScript framework, insert database, insert Python? I only work in Rust or Haskell or like the soup du jour of the framework. And they don't really ask you any questions about your business or your customers. And I'm like, that's because you're not making yourself. The businesses only exist to solve customer problems. And if you aren't aligned to the business and solving the business needs, which are customer problems, then you're not making yourself completely, you're somebody who's going to be less important than the people that are focused on that, because you're not going to be aligned, and you're going to find yourself in a position where maybe that's not as important because we care about the technology, but everybody's bringing these creative ideas and these juices for our customers.
Definitely. I get to interview and talk to a lot of software developers globally. I hear some of the same things around that, right? As far as, we're customer focused. We're looking to solve the customer's problem any which way we can, like it was our own, right? So then that brings in that ownership mentality, that brings in, I know I can solve this. But I think they all do such a good job of, we're a team, right? I think in Agile and Scrum has really helped bring that together. We've all moved away from that waterfall approach of let's just work in our silos, but bringing everyone together, it definitely helps solve those problems, which I've heard a lot. And in the challenge, right? I've heard a lot of our really, really good engineers, they want to be challenged. So they want to move on to projects and work on the most challenging projects that they possibly can.
And I tell 100%. You, I mean, what you were talking about, ownership and customer obsession. That just rung so true to me that if the next time I talk to my kids, honestly, I'm going to say, like, if you don't bring that to the table and make it clear right up front, then you'll probably be beat out by somebody who demonstrates that more than you do, because I think those things just ring so true in a person's effectiveness, their ability to affect change. And what a senior manager looks for in a person that's evolving in their organization and brings true value to a team, to the clients, and is a future leader for sure.
Yeah.
I'd love to dive in the AI space, but talking about AI, but how are you concerned, and have you dove into the security aspects of it when you are leveraging something like Copilot? Is it gated off? What are some of the things that keep you up at night too with in the AI space, and how you guys are using it?
At Uplight, the number one concern of utilities is safety and security, right? So if innovation has to take a back seat, we're going to make sure we're reliable. we're safe, and making sure that comes along, that drags security along with it. So Gen AI can be kind of a scary topic in that lens, but when we talk to our customers, they're like, we're trying to adopt Gen AI as quickly as we can. What are you doing? And so there's the point being that there are safe and secure ways of doing that. So that's very important to us. And I think it's evolving very quickly. Like, something today that you're nervous about, indemnification or where are the sources of the data and everything else, is likely to be solved with an enterprise offering tomorrow where you can get your private, sandbox situation. That was definitely true with us in the very early days of like a GitHub Copilot, for example, and like, okay, how is this thing working and what do they learn off of and how is it going? And it's like, and then not too much longer, there was an enterprise offering where it was your data is your data, your code is your code, and it's not going to be playing outside of that. And it passed all of our tests for that sort of thing. I think the chat GPTs of the world, quickly replacing, although Google now with Gemini, I think is coming back where now you can get your AI answers out of a Google search as well. But, how are you using it? And every time you ask a question, is that now new data that's available in the LLM itself, and being sucked in? I think you got to be careful about how you're thinking about prompt-based efficiency gains and what kind of IP you may be giving to others, and being careful about making sure that that's also safe and secure. So I guess all I'd say is like, it's a lens you got to put over everything. And I think depending on your tolerance for the industry that you're in and your customers, and it may look a little bit different in terms of how fast you move in different areas. And also you can probably put those in a box a lot easier and keep that firewalled off so that it's not going to go be anything that could be problematic for a larger part of the business. And there's nothing that can be harmed in that area because it's a thing we're trying, it's a thing we're testing, it's nothing production, it's nothing that's going to infect or harm any of the other areas.
If I can ask sort of one last question in regards to what you were just talking about, not just AI though, but like what advice would you give organizations to sort of adapt to an ever-changing landscape? And now you have AI and it just seems like things are moving pretty quickly. We're entering a new phase of revolution. We were in the internet revolution, industrial revolution before that, and now we're in this new sort of AI revolution. But AI aside or AI included in this. So what advice would you give to organizations just dealing with a constant change in the environment and also the knowledge of competitors adapting to change as you're adapting to change? Sort of how do you guide your stakeholders?
I think about two different curves, right? So you've got your productivity curve of adopting Gen AI, and you've got your product curve of adopting Gen AI. And on your product curve, humans and behavior take a while to get things dialed, right? We're not as snappy at like changing to a new tool every other day and a new way of working. And so I'm always a little bit more, you can try in small groups, but before we scale this out and become the new standard in the way of working on productivity that's going to change everything, maybe we want to be more thoughtful on tools and everything else and make sure that it's going to stick around. It's going to be here for a hot second. But when it comes to the product side of it, that's where I get much more aggressive on the experimentation. So what agents are we going to put in our product? How are we going to have agentic inferences in our business intelligence? Like there's all these things that are moving very quickly. If you've done a good job of building out your architecture in a services environment, those pieces should be easier to swap in and out for the problems that you're solving based off of a new technology landscape, right? Or a new vendor that's doing it in a new way. And on top of that, there's some really great companies out there that are building out AI frameworks, right? So that whether it's open source or a combination of open source and a vendor you're paying for, so that you have the opportunity to change these things out. It's like, oh, well, this is a really bad example, but like the backbone for our agent is OpenAI today, and tomorrow we're going to change it to Llama or something. And being able to do that inside those frameworks, I feel like that's a lot easier on the product side. But doing that when it comes to how we do our work, like that can get pretty disruptive pretty quick on that changing out. It's just so I'd be a little bit slower on adopting those things and knowing that those productivity gains can be step functions pretty quick once you adopt a new policy, but they can also plummet really fast on the other side of it if it didn't work out and everybody was told to go do this thing a certain way and you didn't even know you were losing productivity because it doesn't work the way that it was intended, or you're getting bad results.
Do you have conversations with stakeholders in regards to, have you been changing the definition of innovation at your company or sandboxing because of so many things are coming into reality and your ability to sort of your need to continue to evolve, to learn, to digest, and to innovate with the changes in the technology space? Have you? I guess my question is around setting expectations and having conversations around, what is innovation at Uplight today versus in the past?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think it probably depends on the sector and the domain that you're in, right? Like if I was in the call center domain, I think that would look different than working in the utility space where some of the AI is always going to be a layer in there, but it might not be the thing that could disrupt our business model. So for us, I think it's a value add, but it's not the thing. So I think of it as I would think about layering in any other aspect of innovation that we always want to stay abreast of and move quickly on. This one is it's kind of all encompassing, right? So you don't kind of get this all the time. And so it can be very daunting. And I think honestly, keeping it scoped and sized to the impact it can have for our customers is important. So for us in our domain is it can have an impact, but it isn't going to be the driving force that's going to change everything. So I want to cap our level of interest and investment of prototyping and checking that out to kind of that size of impact overall.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Hey, well, thank you for joining us today, Jesse. Your expertise in engineering and product leadership, agile development, and scaling product teams was incredibly valuable. I really appreciate that. And by the way, to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Software Without Borders. If you're interested in learning more about product management, remote team optimization, or the latest trends in software development, be sure to subscribe to our show and leave just a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting platform. Jesse, I really appreciate the time. We hit a lot of different topics, and your experience and insights were really valuable. Thank you.
Andy, Ryan, thanks so much for the time. I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you.